Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you guys are having an amazing week so far. It is Tuesday. Excited to be here with you all. All right, a couple things. Two things. One, I want to talk to you about something in the beginning before we jump in like I always do every time. But this week is about building the platform and diving into operations and accountability. So we're really diving into operations and accountability. Now, we are having a bonus call on Thursday with our ops manager, and she is going to be going and diving in on the systems and operations of this. So today there's two things I want you guys to hear today. One, I want you to hear it from a business person's perspective. So I'm going to be giving you my perspective on how I, from an organization, from a CEO standpoint, like to see things, how we're actually unfolding stuff, what I see, and that's what I'm going to teach to. And the reason why we offer up these bonuses, because I know some of you guys are going to ask, like, well, how to specifically about how things work, and I actually have no idea. And so that's why we're having this bonus call on Thursday that correlates with this class, so you can ask specific questions that are going to be related to our operations and systems and how the intricacies of the checklist. But let me explain it to you as if you're running a Fortune 1000 company or 100 company, and the things that I look for and what operations and accountability mean to me. So no matter what stage you're in, if you are an individual agent or you've got a team or you're in the midst of growing a team or you are at a 6+ level, I want you to hear it from there so that you can file this information away and be able to put it forward as you start building your organization. You start hearing from that. So hopefully that makes sense to you guys. But I want to approach it that way, which is why we have that on Thursday as well too. All right, again, Boomtown, if you don't have it, they were up with us at our advance last week, which is awesome. They really dove deep into the systems and tools they have. And when we're talking on Thursday with Becca, you're going to see a lot about how we use to track and hold agents accountable and what we use inside the Boomtown system from afar, meaning that how our hub is utilizing a platform like Boomtown to make sure we're holding people accountable and our agents accountable throughout the country to getting leads. Because let me guess, how many people in here have had an agent on their team or the individual agent go, we don't have enough leads, right? We don't have enough leads, they're not there, right? Well, that's not necessarily the case. It's what you do with the leads. It's like, yeah, there may not be an A buyer that comes in every single day, but there's buyers there. They are there, and we're going to dive deep into how do we pull these things out, right? So when I think of operations, right, when I think of operations and accountability, I think, going the wrong way. When I think of this, I think of the systems, which is your foundation. And if you look at the actual definition of systems, hold on, back up, sorry. You know, I got ahead of myself here, and what I wanted to actually go over with you guys first is there was a really cool article, so just pause for a second on systems because this is going to tie into it. It's called the 5-hour rule. I'm sure you guys have probably heard this before. Oh, yeah, the 5-hour rule, but let me just give you a different spin on this. And I want to bring some light to you as you build an organization, what your life will turn into, because a lot of people struggle going from the we to the they in an organization, and not just in business vertical. I'm talking about in 95% of businesses, people stay small because they can't have the patience or the fortitude or the vision to get to they. So when you get and build an organization, you need to start adopting the 5-hour rule. So I don't care if you're an individual agent doing everything right now or you have 50 people on your team, this must be a priority of what you do in your life, right? So the 5-hour rule comes into play is that most successful people, and I would say 99% of them, and success leaves clues, right? It's all left in there. It's in books. Why people get successful and write a book. People don't write books that are successful to make money. People write those books because they go, man, I went through all of this. I need to share it with somebody. How many people on this call have gone, a couple hundred people on this call have gone through something, whether a camping trip or an experience or a whale watch or a safari, and they're like, look, I just want to go share it with somebody, and they like telling the story about it. Well, that's the same thing with your life and business. Business is a conduit for your own personal growth. So after you've gone through this, you're like, look, I want to share this with somebody, and that's what people do. So what do the best leaders do? Well, they follow the 5-hour plus rule, meaning that at least 5 hours a week they're adding value in 3 different categories in their life. And there's 3 things here. Number 1 is read. And I'm going to name drop a little bit because the article does, and Hallie will post this in Basecamp so you guys can read it later. But the number 1 is read, which let me just share with you what some of the most successful people do. Warren Buffett, by the way, spends 5 to 6 hours per day reading. 5 to 6 hours per day. By the way, you have to understand, Warren Buffett is probably the largest business owner who did not have a product that was scalable. Like Microsoft was a scalable product which you can make billions off really quickly. Facebook, Twitter, right? They all were apps that could be just instantly pushed out there and you could accomplish massive value. Warren Buffett bought cash flowing companies, i.e. he bought real estate. He's in insurance. He actually doesn't really even invest in the stock market. He invests into companies that happen to maybe be public, but he invests into companies for these things. 5 to 6 hours a day. Bill Gates, 50 books per year. Mark Zuckerberg, 1 book every 2 weeks. Elon Musk, right, reading 2 books per day while he was growing up. 2 books per day. So my point on this is, write this down. Do you want a 52-to-1 advantage over your competition? A 52-to-1 advantage over your competition. And that comes down to reading 1 book per week. 1 book per week, 52 weeks a year, gives you a 52-to-1 advantage. And that's assuming they read 1 book, right? You want to get ahead of this? And remember, when you read books and you take this all in, it's not so that you can take that information immediately and you're going to have all the answers. It's you're stockpiling this. So as soon as you have to make a decision, you have all this added value that you can bring into it. So that's one piece of it, is read. Number 2 is reflect. Right? You know, AOL CEO Tim Armstrong makes his senior team spend 4 to 5 hours per week just thinking. Jack Dorsey, serial wanderer, right? LinkedIn CFO Jeff Weiner schedules 2 hours of thinking time per day, right? Think about this. I mean, I could name drop more. I mean, are you scheduling your thinking time? Remember, your thinking time doesn't have to necessarily be sitting in a chair. It can be exercise. It can be sewing, right? It can be walking. It can be swimming. It can be any of these things that you're reflecting on this thinking of the new information that you've been able to bring in from books. You're reflecting on that in your current organization. How do you see it? How are the operations? How are the systems? What are you learning? How are you taking that all in? That's reflective thinking, right? Look, you don't have to be sitting on an edge of a cliff and smoke coming up and, you know, people dancing around you to be reflective thinking. Put this into practice today. And the third one is experiment, right? Experiment, which is the lab idea, which is go out there and just keep failing forward every day, fail forward, make a decision, make another one, don't get stopped idle. Because when you're building systems, and you're building a foundation, you're going to have to make decisions. Colin Powell just said, and I love this, he said once you get to 30% of information, he has enough to make a decision. And if he gets to 80% of information, he's got too much, which means he spent too much time on it. Because there's a hierarchy. If time we know is not the cheat, then how do we put this into play for that? So that's just, I want to just bring that to you guys. I thought it was really important for the 5-hour rule, bringing that in there. Read, that's what your life's going to look like. Reflective thinking, and continue to experiment. Continue to fail forward from there. Look, if you're like, look, I don't do any of that right now, start with 5 minutes. Right. By the way, if you don't have Audible or some other form of that, when you're in your car, I bet all of us right now could squeak out 45 minutes to an hour every day just by driving. Right? And we have to turn off our favorite, you know, news station or whatever it is. I'm not saying you can't listen to that. 90% of your drive time, your wasted kind of time right there, should be used to educate yourself. Should be pouring into yourself from there. All right, I just wanted to thank you for allowing me to get that off, because I think it's important. I think we don't spend enough time on that, and success leaves clues. You want to be like Warren Buffett, right? WB, the guy's awesome. 5 to 6 hours a day. At some point in time, you're going to wake up, and that's going to be your job, is to read. All right, so systems. What is the definition of systems? It's a set of connected things or parts forming a complex whole in particular. I like this one, right? A set of principles or procedures according to which something is done, right? It's an organized scheme or method. Think about that, right? A set of principles or procedures according to which something is done, an organized scheme or method, right? You know, systems, method, methodology, technique, process, procedure, approach, and practice. There is no secret sauce to this, folks. You have to find out what works for you and your business and has the best ROI or the best user friendliness of the organization itself. So systems, right? How are we bringing this into play? How does this work? And one of the things that's important for all of us to remember is that systems run the business and people run the systems. I also like to turn this around and say, you don't manage a system. People always say, well, I'm managing this person, I'm managing that, and I get what they're saying. We should stop thinking that way and think that you manage a system and you lead people. You manage a system and you lead people. If you have to manage somebody, most of the time that's probably the wrong person, unless there's a crisis and you really need to dig down deep, right? But you manage a system and you lead people throughout this process. And that's what you're going to do. So let me talk about how this looks. You may or may not have seen this graph before, but let me just explain this. So if you are here, and like you are there, you are here, that little circle bullseye, doesn't mean you're at 0. That just means this continuum of the stair step never ends, by the way, never. And it's never going to arrive because you're always going to be growing, which is why you want to learn, because you're always there. So you are here. So this uptick, right, when you see the vertical line going up, that growth mode, that's where growth lies. That's when you're breaking down your systems. You're breaking down the operations. We talked about the 5-hour rule. We talked about experimenting as the last option for that, right? That's what I'm talking about. You're going out there and experiment. You're growing. You're breaking. It's like you're on a 3-legged horse. Every you get 2 there, another one's breaking, right? You're constantly driving this forward. So as you break and as you start to grow, the thing that you have to be aware of is when to pause and rebuild, which is why building a business is very similar to this stair step. You hit a big growth factor, right? You hit this spurt of growth. Maybe you brought on somebody new. Maybe your team's connected. Maybe you got an investor client or a new construction build or a development or whatever it is. You hit this kind of this spurt. Then all of a sudden you realize, like, oh my God, my clients aren't being serviced. The principles aren't there. The systems aren't there. So while you've grown, all of these things have been kind of whacked out of place. Now you have to refine your systems. You have to redefine them. You have to, by the way, when you're redefining your systems, you may have to redefine the people in your organization. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to fire somebody. It may mean you have to put them in a different seat. Or it may mean you need to go get somebody else. Right? It may mean that you have to go get another individual. We talked last time about how you slither, right, the job away from individuals so they continue to grow. That's what happens here. Your growth spurt should produce income, which your income should be then poured back into your business, which is helping you refine your operations, your systems, your accountability. And then, by the way, this happens. So then all of a sudden, so people ask this question, like, when do I know I need to pause? Well, you will know. If you hit a good enough growth spurt, your clients will tell you, hey, this is happening, right? It becomes, you hear Gary say this a lot, hey, it becomes a shit show. Maybe he doesn't say that, but it gets messy, right? It becomes messy. And so as you hit this growth spurt, then you go, I got to pause before we do anything else and rebuild our foundation. And then as you start rebuilding the foundation, you start having everything there, and then you realize, like, I'm ready for another growth. And let's go. So then you get everybody's energized and you hit a growth spurt. And again, this growth spurt lasts, and then boom, you realize that the current systems that you just developed are no longer there. Which is why you need to start with the end in mind and start creating the systems, the operations, no matter, that's why it doesn't matter if you're an individual agent here, you're creating the systems that are going to get you to 300 transactions if you're at 10. If you're at 300, the systems that are going to get you to 1,000 transactions, right? And if you're at 1,000, the transactions are going to get you to 10,000 transactions. That's the people that you need to bring in, the caliber of it, so they can visualize what that's going to look like. And this never ends. So as you get closer towards your goal, if you move up from there a couple, then all of a sudden you extend your goal out. So your job as a leader is to never come close to your goal. It's always to continue to push it out there so the team doesn't feel there. But that's what's going to happen as you rebuild your systems and your operations here. So I just want you guys to understand it from a visual perspective. All right, so what are operations best practices? Okay. First of all, document everything. Earlier in my career, and I may be the only one that does this, but I would just make a lot of decisions and then I would forget. And somebody's like, well, you actually said this a while ago. And I'm like, well, I actually don't know if I did or not. And nothing really got documented. And the other thing is while I may remember the conversation, how many people have gone through this? You've had a conversation with it, you actually remember it, but there's multiple perceptions of what the conversation was. So the reason why you bring in and you document everything, whether it's people's raises, right, or whether it's economic, incentives, whether it's a job description, which I hate going over job descriptions. That's why I have somebody do it. Document everything. Everything that needs in the conversations that are happening around you, start documenting. This is how you answer your phone, right? This is how you send an email. I mean everything, so it becomes a model and system. You get a franchise booklet. It's got everything in there. And then you have to build your systems for scalability, right? Even if you are a one-man show, this is what I was talking about earlier, where in the stair step, you've got to build your systems for scale. It's like Gary always says, you should build your business to sell, but you should never want to sell it. And the only reason why you do that is because that removes you from the day-to-day, and it also gives everybody else the opportunity to grow. Doesn't mean you ever need to sell it. Gary Keller has built Keller Williams to be able to sell, but it doesn't mean he's not going to. He's been offered to sell it. He's not going to, right? So document everything. the thing is, we a lot of times have holes in our systems, and we don't realize that our system is in our head, or it's in our, our admin's head, right? And really, the system is, you say, I may not have systems. You actually have a system. It just may not be a good one, and you're allowing it to drive your organization instead of putting them in there. By the way, this is really for salespeople, for visionaries, this is a really challenging part. This is why I said we're doing a bonus call on this, so you guys can hear it from other people, because I know it operationally from a 100-foot view of what happens, but I don't actually want to know how everything else does. That's just really boring for me. And maybe it lights you up, and that's awesome. You want to go into operations, but for me, that just sucks. And so I'd much rather focus on growth or other things. So make sure you have other people listening to this on your team. Take this recording and allow them to hear it, or document these things. Just know that you need to go find a person who knows the systems, and then have them listen to this call and then the other call, so that you understand that, right? So everything is a system. Right? So look at this. The sooner you have great systems in place, the sooner you get the leverage. The only way you can lead people and manage a system is you actually start having a system. The quality of your systems will determine the quality of your business. You should highlight that one, right? The quality of your systems will determine the quality of your business. It would be like Ben and Jerry's not having a system for how they make ice cream, and then going in there and entrepreneurial, just kind of whipping it up. No set ingredients, no procedures, but yet they're trying to replicate that all over the place. By the way, this happened, with McDonald's. Before McDonald's is McDonald's, they were successful because of the individual shop, and they tried to scale it. They didn't have the systems in place, and they were missing, and you guys may know the story, they're missing one key ingredient, and that was the potatoes. Those are fries. And then when the brothers bought it over, they realized they were missing one integral part of the system, and that's what allowed them to scale. But they tried it before, and they had failed, and they bought it out. And so it can be one little piece of information that you're missing that will allow you to not scale or to scale. And it's bringing in those people that can identify where you're missing and what holes there are, right? It's like a boat being shot, right? You just take it on water. Where's it coming from? So you need those people to be able to identify this stuff. So if you're a visionary and you kind of are similar to me and you hate systems and you don't really like the whole, even having the conversation about it right now, it's like boring for you, then you need to go out there and bring on somebody who loves them, who literally loves growth, that you love growth as much as they love systems. Because they'll go in there and they're going to annoy you, but they're going to put together these things that are awesome. Quality systems will help talent rise to the top. Because when you have the top level talent, when you have top level systems, you can see how fast somebody can go through all of this. And that's going to be a really key aspect for you as you go and you build an organization. Great systems are created and evaluated and restructured regularly. And when I say regularly, I mean daily. When you're in a growth phase of an organization, they are getting torn down. This is where you got to have people around you. This is where you got to be looking for feedback, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes, how you do that. This is where you got to have these systems are constantly being pressed against and constantly being upgraded so that you stay above, the systems stay above the growth. Every organization goes through this. It's your job to make sure you have people in place that are elevating the systems on a daily basis for here. And don't be afraid to take time to make time by creating a new system. This is the thing, is we don't see systems as revenue generating. And so we don't equate, reading with revenue generating, like the 5-hour rule. We don't equate stopping and looking at systems or stopping and hiring the right people as revenue generating. If we did, we'd all be building businesses. We'd be moving from the listings and lead side of the triangle to the leverage side of the triangle. You ever notice that we spend all of our time in the listings and lead side of the triangle? Well, if you ever get our conversations, which some of you may enjoy, some of you may not, I'm always going to talk on the leverage side of things because that's just where I live. And the listings and lead sides, you can go out there and get that in any course, right? You can go out there and download that from Google anywhere. It's listings and leads, how to do all those things. You can watch 1,000 different listing presentations on there. It's the ability to implement these things at a high level and understand it and think differently, which is how you gain leverage, which is why so few people do it. Because it's not this really climatic event that happens. It's very anticlimactic. It's very boring, but you have to master that. And mastering the new systems and taking the time to do that, really putting into place for these things. All right, so how do you find the right tools, right? So these are some of the things that on Thursday in your bonus call, they're going to dive into. So if you don't get all your answers today, you're going to dive into this. Finding the right tools. Hively is one of the things that I put in place what this is, and this is a great tool, and so you can put this, you can research it before Thursday if you have questions for it, but I would highly recommend putting this in there. And I'll tell you why from a business owner's perspective in a second. Hively, and maybe some of you guys know this, Hively is basically a score at the bottom. We put them on all of our team's email signatures. So our hub, right, our leadership, right, they have this little thing. It says, how am I doing today? And it's got smiley faces. And you can just click on the smiley face anonymously, whatever that word is, right, anonymously, right? You can click on it. And as you click on it, it then starts recapping it, right, on a weekly basis. And so that our team gets, at the end of the week, gets a Hively update, and they can say how many people actually ranked folks, what department it came in there, and what individual, what they got, a smiley face, a medium face, or a poor face, right? And so we can see it. And I'll give you an example. About a month ago, we were kind of going in some flux, and things were not going in the direction that we needed to, and we were having a little bit of a shitstorm. And so we got, on average, we get about like 13 or 14 a week we were getting up to then. And then all of a sudden we got like 4 that week, and I go, all right, pause. Something's going on. We only got 4. One of them was negative. What's happening? So somebody better bring me a report. Somebody better find out. Somebody better dig in. Everyone stop. Go dive into what is going on in these departments that caused this. And then we did. We put a lot of energy, we put focus on these things, having the right tools, having the right systems to be able to visualize this from a perspective, a business owner's perspective. You notice that, and then you put the attention of your team and you on what's going on there. The week later, by the way, we got like 22 Hivelies. They were all positive. We doubled the number that we typically get. And now that number hovers right around 20 to 25. We've doubled it, all from seeing and information. So this is the power of using the right tools for systems and operations. So we use that. I saw there was a problem because we had something bad. We just didn't get any, really. And I'm like, well, that's not a good thing either. And so you develop patterns, right? That's why these tools and systems are repeatable, so that you can see a pattern that shows up that's irregular. And it can be on the positive side and be on the negative side. And so if you see the positive side in the growth trajectory, you need to realize you need to pull up systems in immediately. Right? If you like we did a month ago, we had that. It's like, okay, well, let's turn this around. Smart Zip, Mojo, dialing systems, Brivity, how we use Brivity in the back-end systems, right? Ben's company, how we utilize this, how we use Boomtown and integrate this into CTE. Becca's going to go over all that stuff with you, but we use that from agent calls to CEOs. It's a tracking tool for them, right? So that's really the powerful thing. I'm just going to answer questions. It's for clients too. So Hively is for clients. So anybody, when our listing management team, our client care team, our transaction team, our marketing department is interacting with our clients can click on that. And the majority of where they come from is from clients. So we're seeing this firsthand, and from my perspective, I'm seeing it come in. It's just a really great tool to use so that you can start seeing a picture that's happening in your organization, good or bad. Remember, you can't be afraid to look at these things. You have to create a system so it forces you to look at this stuff. It's like people don't want to look at their bank account or get on a scale because they're afraid of what they're going to see. Well, if you never look at it, you're never going to be able to start measuring where you are. It doesn't matter where you are today, you are, right? There's nothing you can do about it. So you might as well accept it and say, you know what? I love it. I'm going to look that straight in the eye and I'm going to take this on. And that's what you do. That's what you want to push forward. All right, so the administrative division for systems. So what does this look like? So you can see here we have what's called our intranet, and our intranet literally has just about every single thing that you could possibly ever need from a systems perspective in here. We've loaded it all, right? So all of our teams, we have 19 locations across the country right now. All of them are loaded in here. So they have launch, they have buyers, they have listing management, they have TC, they have recruiting materials, and it goes on and on and on. Every single thing is loaded in there. So when we launch a team, all of the launch gets updated. The same system occurs like you're making a pint of Ben & Jerry's ice cream and gets loaded in the intranet. So then we can guide people through the launch process of how to start getting and accessing the intranet so you have an entire administrative division. You have a system for this. It automatically happens when teams launch. Everything they need is in there, and we train people where to find these things. So again, from whatever they would need, it's all in there. It's in a form of this stuff. And it's literally it's their listing booklets, it's their buyer presentations, it's their recruiting videos, it's these things, it's the Indeed ads. Every single thing you do, the more systematized, and by the way, the majority of this launches automatically. So we collect and launch and Beck can go over more of this on Thursday, but in our launch, we have a dedicated launch person, right, who's overseen by our DOO, and the launch person collects all the information from an incoming agent, whether it's, you know, a brand new agent or a CEO. We collect their sphere, we collect the database, collect all the information we can, and we automatically click off our checklist, right? So you see all the checklists and brevity that we use this for launch as well too. So literally, when we're launching somebody, we collect all the information to make sure that we have the checklist, and then we automatically kick off our campaigns to start generating revenue for them instantly. So you can see, again, and this took years to build out, so don't expect that. I mean, maybe some of you guys already have this, but maybe we don't. Don't look at this and go, well, shit, I mean, they've got a big team. They can just do this. Of course they can. You can't allow that thinking to occur. You need to realize that, no, I need to take one person and start building this stuff out, and then it's going to continue to evolve from there. But these are, look at your intranet. By the way, they're like free. You can build an intranet for free now. You understand that, right? If you just have somebody that knows how to do it, they're all like, I don't even know where they're hosted, but I know they're free because I didn't have to prove an expensive for it. So I don't know necessarily where, but I'm sure they can answer where that is. But they are free to build out now. At least I'm pretty sure they are. So administrative system. So a couple of things I want to show you in here. So in the hub intranet, right? So we have our hub intranet, right? We have our launch, our listing management, our marketing, our resources, and transaction management. Everything you need is all available at a touch, right? You have your iPad, you click on it, right? It's very easy. Everything's loaded into it before you have to ask. This is the power of creating the systems and the process for things, so as people come into play, it automatically uploads. So if you're an individual team and you bring on an agent, you should still have the same system. Just follow this so that when they come in there, start launching an onboarding process for an agent. Start launching an onboarding process for a client. Client comes into a listing process. How is it managed? Right? How is the process managed? How is the client led? Right? The agent should be leading the client, right? Negotiations, property inspections, reductions, but the system should be taking care of the client from behind the scenes with automatic updates, you know, email notifications, text messages, instant showing feedback. All of these things that occur can set up as a system so that the same experience that one client has, the other client has as well too, because it's a system, not a human being that's doing it. Does that make sense to you guys? That's why I want you to understand that when you look at that, it's a system that provides the best results for it. And the human is the one leading this. They're doing these things, but the system is what can be managed. And that's the predictability of how an experience happens. I mean, we use this in anything. You buy an iPad, it's right. You buy an iPad, you click a thing, it's automated, it comes in there, and it's shipped out to you. I mean, right? The iPad is wrapped a certain way. By the way, it's a patent on the box that Steve Jobs created, right? Because he wanted it so experience to be there. The way you open it up, everything's packaged the same way. Are you operating in this efficiency? That's what I want you guys to understand there. Are you operating at there, right? I'm just going to look at a couple questions that are here. Unfortunately, I have to like click off that when I look in there. Hallie can answer the question about where you built your intranet. I actually have no idea, but that's a question. Thanks, Jeff, for asking that. I'll make sure we get your answer to it. But you can see the hub intranet there, so you can start putting these things to play. This is that Hively on the left-hand side, and you can look at this. Click on the face for feedback on my performance. How did I do? You see the green, medium, right, red. This is an example. Last 7 days, it gives you a score of 21 ratings, 17, 3 good, 1 negative, right? And you can see if there's any feedback that comes if somebody writes it, and you can read it, right? By the way, if you should be constantly pushing the limits here. And then if you want to know when to stop growing, when all of a sudden you're getting 17 good ones, and then the next week you all of a sudden you get 17 bad ones and 1 good one, that means your systems need to stop and you need to translate that into performance before you can grow anymore. Right? So those type of things, but you need to have these systems in place so you can follow that. All right. So what are some systems for lead generation? So this is, again, we use SmartZip. It really is a service that allows us to generate for listings. But most importantly, we use Boomtown as literally a device for how, this is their example of their dashboard. And I've never logged in to Boomtown, but I can see it right here, that everything that's there. I get a report. So if you want to, again, I'm talking to you from my perspective, and on Thursday, which is why I want you guys to have this call, Becca can go through all of this for you guys. And then the next call that you have would be even more defined about that next bonus call as well too. So don't freak out if you don't have all the answers here. I'm not getting that to you. I want you to hear from my perspective. I get a report pretty much daily by I think noon every day that tells me how many contacts each team had, what they're going into, and I'm going to talk to you about scoreboards that I get every day so I can see this. Because honestly, I'm not going to log in and look at this stuff. I look at that and I'm like, I don't even know what that means, right? I just want to, there's certain things that I want to look at, and there's certain numbers that I want to track. It's like when Gary Keller's building Killer Williams, you know what the number one thing he wanted to know was? Is how many agents do we have? That's all I care about, is how many agents do we have? If that number ever went backwards, that was a major problem. Actually, for 3 months in a row, it went backwards, and Gary Keller made a change in hire, right? That was John Davis coming in over Mark Willis, right? That happened in 2009, 2010. Went backwards for 3 months in a row and made a change. So you need to see these things coming in to figure out what your number is. For me, it's pendings, right? There's a certain number of pendings, 175 pendings per month. So we want to see minimum throughout the rest of the year, and then it changes next year, right? We have a 1K, 2K, 3K goal, 1,000 agents, 2,000 listings, 3,000 pendings. How many do we have to do per day? And we get, this numbers are tracked every day in a system, and I'll get to that in a second. So Becca will fill you in a little bit more in Boomtown, but this is how we utilize that as well. All right, so here's some of the scorecards. And by the way, scorecards are really, really important for us who love visual things and for our agents. Right? People in systems love all the details, but I want something that's very easy to be able to see instantly who's winning, who's not. This is an August goal of 150 pendings. Right? It tells us we've added a couple teams since then, but you can see all the red, all these numbers are the number of transactions each team has done. Right? So you can see Arkansas got, I don't know, 30-something teams. Vermont had 23 teams that team. Wisconsin had 21 pendings. Minnesota had 18. Right? This is through August. This is just 1 month. And so we can see this at the end of the month real quickly. These are scoreboards, right? So we get these scoreboards every single day. The entire organization gets them. From every staff member to every agent in our organization, everybody sees these every day. And you can clearly, there's a couple that we send out every day. Pendings is one of them. And pendings is the most important goal, and I want everybody to understand where we're at. And I want to know if it was 150 was the goal, now it's 175 because we've added teams, and I want to see where everybody's at. And here's how I utilize this. Again, I'm talking to you from my perspective, and then Becca will talk from her perspective, who's really in it on Thursday. From my perspective, if we have to do 8 to 9 deals per day, right, pendings per day, and we have a day that we do 5, and the next day we do 3, I'm stopping the conversation. I'm taking that email, the scorecard that goes out to all of HRG, right, her group, and I'm forwarding that to our leadership team, and I'm saying, you guys better have conversations tomorrow with every single one of our agents. You better start a competition. You better start a call night. You better do some sort of action to generate more pendings because we've just slipped for 2 days. And that's how you use this as the systems and the tools and accountability trackers for the company to be speaking to you. So I utilize these things because, by the way, if you watch Sunday, I know it's talking about Sunday football, right? 30% people or less are watching football right now because everything's going on. I think it's fascinating. But if you're somebody who's watching football and you go, hey, the Steelers won, what's the first thing you do? What was the score? What is the score? So you need to think of it that way. And again, you can be one individual agent. And the reason why I bring this up to you guys is you need to start preparing these things now. Because you can accelerate that gap for 5 years. That's why you're taking this course, is to start putting these things into place now. It doesn't take rocket science to build out, right? You have these things, and if you're 3 agents or 2 people, every day they need to go out, right? Or everyone already knows pendings. Doesn't matter. We're still doing it. Just you get in the habit of doing these things so that you can think about it and visualize it. And by the way, just the awareness of seeing this every day, and if you're seeing it, and by the way, if there's a team in here that's not doing well, and every day they know that they've only put 3 or 4 pendings and we're halfway through the month, what do you think they're doing? They don't want to look at that. They're seeing everyone else race past 25 pendings, 30 pendings. We've got 4. Team, we better stop, right? So it uses that as for that CEO to kick into place and make sure we're really pushing forward. So that's how the power of these things, right? And then on your personal side, you all have future selves. You have 4-in-1s. You have the 4 conversations. We all know the 66-day challenge. It takes 66 days to create a habit. We are habitual creatures. The reason why we create habits, by the way, the reason why we create these is so that we have more energy to put onto the singular focus that we need to do. The more habits we have, the less energy we have to use throughout the day so that we can take that energy and fight through challenges. If we have to use our energy constantly for discipline, right, if we're constantly having to discipline ourselves every day, right, we're using all this energy just to get to the day for something, when a problem happens, boom, you explode. That's why we've got to create these habits that perform in a way that's leading to success every day, so that when challenges show up, boom, you're ready. Let's go. Take it. I love challenges, right? I love these things. Bring them on. Love to go out there and get them on, right? So what are your vision boards? What's your whiteboard look like? Your scorecards. I'm going to give you some examples right now, a couple other scorecards we use. 5 daily questions are one of the most powerful things that I've implemented with our leadership teams for all of my companies, by the way. I'm going to give you those 5 questions for being on today. Daily power-ups. So our daily power-ups, so every day, on Mondays, by the way, I do a power-up. So every day there's a power-up call Monday through Friday for 10 minutes. And look, we have people in California to Vermont to Maine, so we are in 3 different time zones. It doesn't mean people have to be live, but they know that the recording goes out in a system every single day as soon as it's done. It's recorded, and it goes live at Eastern Standard Time at 8:20 to 8:30. And at 8:30, people should be doing the 15-3-1, 15 minutes of role-playing, 3 hours of lead gen, which should equate to at least 1 buyer, 1 seller appointment, 15-3-1, right? So every day there's a power-up call. I do one on Mondays, and the rest of the leadership team does Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and each one brings a different component to it. And we rotate out CEOs picking one day, once a month, and they come in there and do a power-up call, I think once a month or every other week, and they can bring a certain level of value to all the agents. And then again, that's recorded and that's sent out. So if you're in the West Coast, you can wake up and you can listen to it as a team, right? That's what I know a lot of teams do. But there's a system for it, right? That's the system for your daily power-ups, right? And then weekly team meetings, we'll talk about that in a second. All right. So here's some additional scorecards. I don't know how old these are, but I'll show you a couple examples here. So this is one on the left-hand side. That's kind of our current, that's example of our teams here. And the race is on, 20 agents in production. The reason why we say 20 agents is because I think 20 agents is that number that gives predictable cash flow to a business. Not necessarily to yourself and your energy. This is you out of production, 20 agents. This is like, you need a market center needs 15 caps or 100 agents, and that's kind of your predictable. You should be generating cash flow every month. Well, the same thing operates in a business and the team side. It's a race to 20 agents, right? It's how fast can you get to 20? By the way, if you want to launch a market center, they allow you to go out there and launch with one agent? No. They don't. What do you have to do? You have to recruit, 15 cappers and 40 total agents before they give you a market center. You have to have $250,000 in the bank, sitting in there before you can launch, because they know it takes time and energy to build these things. So again, the race is on. This is old because Arkansas has 26 agents on it right now, as an example, right? Connecticut, Charlotte. I mean, you can see all these teams have since grown, but this is every week. This scorecard goes out to our CEOs, so they become competitive. Once you get 20 agents, you have that predictable cash flow, right? And then we have a listing volume, right? So the volume goes out once a week, so people can see on the listing side our listing volume and our listings. So the ones that go out every day are pendings and listings. So it tells us how many teams. It says first of all, it says the goal, so 175 closings, right, for the month, and then it says we're at 38 out of a 75, and that's 38%, right, the way there. It shows this every single day, so the entire team sees this. Same thing on the listing side. Every day it goes out. If we have a goal of 100 listings, right, then it says, okay, we've taken 5 today. Which teams took 5, and they're highlighted, and they're all put in there to show which teams have taken and what's the total amount of listings taken month to date, and then every month it changes. But these scorecards are designed for our company, but also for you as a business owner. So you can see this and say, okay, where are we growing? Where are we going out here? Where are we not? And every day you're looking at this, and it takes about 5 minutes to review this stuff. It takes about 30 seconds, actually, not even 5 minutes. I don't know why I said 5 minutes. It takes like a minute and a half to look at these things, all of them, and they're all in one email. They go out. This is the power of utilizing these things and the systems for it. Right? So that's what I want you guys to think about. Here's another example of the listings, right? Just an example. This might have been the first couple days in October, right? Goal of 100 listings. Where are they at? Where's everybody at with these things? Just to give you an example of those things, right? All right, so hopefully you guys got an idea of what scorecards, how that tool, how the system that happens. By the way, the system behind that scorecard is our TC department sends an email to our marketing department every day at 5 that says your current listing and transaction numbers up to date are ready to pull. And that is an example. Then we go in there and the marketing department grabs that and then brings in the number of pendings or the number of new listings that have come on, and then our marketing department sends out the pretty little email about that scorecard, and it also brings in and tells you which teams have grown that day in listings or pendings and how many were we at for our goals. That's the power of having that in place, and that's a system that happens every day. So hopefully you guys can start to see these things. They're really designed to provide you with the most amount of information at the least amount of energy that you have to expend. That's how systems that you're supposed to be able to manage them, right? Otherwise, you end up just doing all of these things and taking so much energy, you have no time or no resources available to go out there and challenge yourself and push yourself forward. Look, if you have an abundance of energy, you can go out there and accomplish anything. One of the quotes that I love about here is, you know, we talk about accountability, right? So are you an accountable person? How do you hold yourself accountable to achieving your goals? Do you have an accountability partner? And by the way, accountability is the link between commitment and results. It is the link between commitment and results. So how do you hold yourself accountable? Let's look at these 5 daily questions. I think it's one of the most important ways to hold yourself accountable. And again, these have morphed. I originally had 4 questions, and then I added the 5th one, which you can see here. And these are really powerful. You get anything away from today's call, start putting these in play today. So if you have 1 person reporting to you or 1 agent, then you have 1 person sending these to you. If you have 5 people reporting to you, 5 people should be sending these to you, right? And if you have somebody who is a leader who's running their own division, then their people should be sending it to them, and then they should be sending it to you. And by the way, as you grow, that's how it happened. So here are the 5 questions. 1, what success did you or your team have today? Again, you're looking for success. You're bringing people in. What success did you have today? Write it down. It can be simple. It can be, and it forces you to go out there and find a success throughout the day. What struggles did you have today? And by the way, there are always struggles. Even if there's not a struggle, there was something that bothered you, you didn't get done right, or what it is. This is where you're looking at. This is where people can really vent here. And I don't mean like vent like, oh my God, social drama. I mean, hey, we had a struggle in our TC department. Here's the issue. Like, it brings it. People may not go to you and say face to face what they really will say in an email, and this gives them a platform so that you can see the areas of improvement that are needed in an organization at all times. So what struggles did you have today? How did you overcome it? By the way, you can see how this is a system. Every day this gets sent out. Every day from all your people. How did you overcome it? I want to know how you overcame the problem. What did you do to bring it? Right? One of our beliefs is that we never give up, number 1, and number 2, there's always a way. So in living our belief system, there's always a move. And so I want to know how you overcame the problem. And then 4, what is your current mindset on a scale of 1 to 10? And I even put this in here so people understand, 1 being terrible. And be honest here. I really don't care if it's a 1, right? If there's something preventing you from being on top of your game, we need to know what to fix it. And look, I do have an individual who sends me one that's usually at like a 10 every single time, but his pattern is that he's a 10, so if he's an 8, that's an issue, right? Because I'm going, well, he's always at a 10. If he's an 8, there must be something wrong there. I have other people that will never be a 10 because they always feel like there's always improvement, right? So you have to understand people, and so if they're at an 8 or 9 constantly, then seeing an 8 or 9 shouldn't be an irregular pattern. But if they come in at a 6 and you're going, okay, well, what was the struggle then? And you should probably be able to, by the way, it's question number 2, you're probably pretty much going to be able to figure out where they're at number 4. And this is also a venue, people may put in personal stuff here, which is great, especially in your leadership team, because if there's a personal problem, do you think it's affecting their business? Yes. It's your job to remove the log jams of life. You remove them for them, and this is a system to be able to do that. Number 5, who is your replacement? And you can see it goes on and talk about there should be 5 people inside or outside the organization. If you don't have any new bench, then start finding people in the next 30 days. You think Keller Williams doesn't have a bench for every single position? They have 5 names underneath it. They're constantly changing. So who is your replacement? Remember, look, if you've been with somebody for 2 years or 3 years, and all of a sudden you walk into them today and you go, look, I know who your replacement is. It's going to feel kind of odd. So slowly say, look, I was on this class. Here are 5 daily questions. And how you approach it with them is, look, we are growing as an organization. And in order for you to grow to your next opportunity, is you got to have your replacement. And so what I want you to do is I want you to be purposeful, systematized, right? You seeing this, operation systems? I want you to be systematized on how you're finding your replacement and how you're pouring into them. Because if you have a leadership position and somebody's moving into a leadership position, you may have to be working with this person for 6 months, a year, 3 years before the person understands your organization. So think about that, right? So who's your replacement? By the way, you can use these questions for your family too, for your partners. I would probably skip number 5 because that might be kind of odd if you asked your partner who their replacement is. That's funny. But no, you really can use it for any aspect. And I use this for all of my companies. So how do you bring this system into play here, right? Who's your replacement at all times? So what success did you have? What struggles did you have today? How did you overcome it? What is your current mindset? And who is your replacement? If they don't have anybody here, they need to start going find somebody. And it's going to show you whether or not this person is in leadership or they're an agent, meaning like they're in sales. There's a big difference between Kobe Bryant and Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick was never the greatest football player, but he's an amazing coach. Kobe Bryant is an amazing basketball player, but he's probably not a great coach. Michael Jordan tried that. He was not a great coach. So your job is to find leadership. That's going to be the biggest challenge of your life, is where do you find the leadership, not necessarily great salespeople. It's 2 different leadership skills. One can be great at, it doesn't mean that one makes more money than the other, by the way. Kobe Bryant makes more money than Bill Belichick does. Well, yeah, I definitely know he does. So it doesn't mean it's a money thing. It's just where do you fall thing, right? Where does you naturally want to go to? Are you naturally going to be leading, or are you naturally going to be in sales? Right? Are you more of that kind of producer, that artist? Just understanding where you are. Another system that you want to put in here, we have what's called a week meeting, and I talked about it briefly last time, and I think somebody had asked a question about this. This is where everybody in my organization comes together, and the leaders share a couple things. Now, whether or not you have one company or a couple people or you're by yourself, start this habit. This is the Disciplines of Execution, right? It's a book. It's a great book if you haven't read it. And it's all about achieving the wildly important goals. Right? It's by Covey. So by the way, the 4 conversations in Keller Williams came from this book. We all know the 4 conversations in Keller Williams. It came from this book. That's why I said earlier, 52-to-1 advantage. If you're reading, you grab concepts from books. Look, just because you grab something from a book and regurgitate it in your own words, it's not like plagiarizing. That's the point of reading it, so you can take that knowledge and put it into your business. You don't have to be the one to pretend you made it up, but put it into your business. Right? No, I mean, all the scripts you use, somebody else came up with, right? Take this stuff and put it in your business. That's why you read. That's why you gain knowledge this way. So the point of this is when you have your wildly important meeting, it's what's your focus on the wildly important goal, right? What are your lead measures for it? You keep your compelling scoreboard. Again, when I read this book, we instituted our scoreboards, which you guys just saw. We put our scoreboards in so people can see within 5 seconds whether or not who's winning. That's the thing there. It's a scoreboard, so within 5 seconds you should be able to tell who wins. And then you create a cadence of accountability. That's the accountability, the system for it. How do you create that system of accountability? Through the 5 questions that I just went over there, right? Through the CTE, through Boomtown, which Becca will go over again in detail on those things. How do you pull that stuff in together? So you can pull these things in and focus on wildly important goals, lead measures, scoreboards, and accountability for them. It's going to be really important for that. All right. So one of the challenges you may find yourself in is as you set goals and you start to develop higher level standards in your life, you have to understand that standards are the bad guy, not you. So what does this mean? What is a standard for each position in your company? You have to bring it down to one number. And when you bring things down to a number, it makes it very clear for them. By the way, this is the system. This is a system of accountability. Remember, accountability is an ops world, right? It's not just, hey, let's have a conversation. Because when we talk about a cadence of accountability, which means that it happens regularly, and we can't just be haphazard, walk into our company 1 week and then not come in there for 2 months and then walk in there and hit everybody. You have to have a cadence of accountability. That's a system, folks. So what is your standard? And what I want to talk about with standards here is standards need to be the bad guy. So if you say, look, hey, you know what? I'm going to agree that when I hire you, you need to go out there and get 5 pendings per month. I'm just making this up, right? 5 pendings per month. And that's your standard. And we have a tough conversation with somebody, which should be scheduled regularly, the people you're meeting with. If they're not hitting 5, right? If they're not hitting 5, their standard, what they brought into you was 5. And so you shouldn't be afraid to have that conversation. Now, if they do 4 every month, it doesn't mean it's a bad thing. You need to understand what the standards are. You need to bring it down to one number. We always see people think that we're being hard on them. What we're being hard on is the standards. We're being hard on the standards. And you have to remember that conversations without action are just entertainment. Just entertainment. Conversations without actionable measures at the end of it are just entertainment. This is a cadence of accountability. So what are your company goals? Are these communicated clearly and consistently to your team every day they go out? It's a system, right? You need to have that out there. How are you going to achieve these goals, right? So when people come in and they want to change their goals, so right now you're probably in goal setting mode for 2018. If you haven't yet, you should start wrapping your head around that. It's fine if you haven't, don't worry about it, but the next 30 days you need to get it nailed down. So if you go and say, look, we're at 100 transactions or we're at 10 transactions, doesn't matter the number, we're at 50 transactions right now, we're going to go to 100. I say, great. What are you going to be doing differently tomorrow that's going to allow you to get to 100 transactions? Because if your activities you're doing now got you to 50 and you don't think you have to change the activities, then you're wrong. You're going to produce 50, maybe 55, maybe you go up 10%, right? So you see most companies stay plus or minus 6 to 10% of where they were year over year, not just in real estate, in most companies, unless there's a fluctuation economically. Big boom, they may ride that out, but most companies stay where they are. The reason why most people stay where they are and most agents stay where they are is purely because they're unwilling to change their habits on a daily basis or change the people in their company, which then changes the actions on a daily basis. That's why companies stay where they are. They're unwilling to make the really big decisions. So what are your company goals? Are they clearly communicated, and how are you going to achieve these goals if they're different from last year? If you say I did 50, I'm going to do 50 again, then you can stay exactly where you are. I don't care. But if you say I want to do 100, you better be changing what happens as an organization tomorrow. Remember, January 1st, if you're not on pace to hit your goals, you're already 15% of the way you're behind. And then you have to assign a who. Who's responsible for each objective? Who's going to be handling this? Again, conversations without actionable goals are just entertainment. They feel good, and we talk about vision. Oh, it's great. We're going to hit this. It's going to be awesome. Well, who's doing it? Who's bringing it down? Who's bringing it to the next level? Who's got this objective? That's what you need to be focused on, right? That's what you need to be continuing to wrap your head around there. All right, so what are your standards? Find your number. By the way, standards can be put into place. You have a standard for how many days you work out, how many phone calls you make per day for agents, for listings, for buyers, right? So if you want to increase your goals, you're doing 50 transactions, you want to take to 100, and you're making $50 a day, you may need to go to $100 a day. Everybody on your team. Find your number and stick to it, right? How many date nights do you have a week or month with your partner? Right? How many times do you tell your kids you love them every day? It's a standard in my life. If I don't hit that number, I'll go through, I love you, love you, love you, love you, right? These are all standards you can have. It doesn't mean you're rigid. It just means that you're purposeful in your life, so they're habits, so that you have more energy to take on the biggest challenges. You see the people that are running seemingly massive organizations, you go, oh man, how do you do all this stuff? How do you do this thing? Well, it's because you've created the habits that allows you to have clarity so you can see the things you need to do. So you don't think about the other stuff, that just becomes standards, and then that way it leaves you a lot of room to go out there mentally, clarity-wise, to continue to grow yourself. So find your numbers. Everything can be boiled down to a number. How many times you go to the gym, how many times you show up, right? How many times you talk your vision with your company. All of these things can be a number for you and can be really drilled down to this to find your standards. Right? All right, so how do you provide a roadmap for growth and opportunity? Here's an example of HG's, Herman Author Group's, kind of plan, if you will, for people coming in there. We really don't do junior agents. This needs to be updated. There's not really junior agents, so don't worry about that. But as an individual agent, where can they go? They can go train in our organization. They can do farm and ranch, new construction, luxury, GPS, commercial. They have all the different opportunities as an individual agent. And then if they want to work their way up to a CEO, what does that look like? Right? Meaning they can run a team. Are they relocatable? Do you want to go move to Colorado and launch a team there? Do you want to move to Texas, 2 areas that we're going into right now? We want to dominate those areas. Do you want to move somebody there from our organization? Somebody who's a lead buyer agent in Arkansas want to move to another place, right? There's opportunities there. How do you get to a 7th level CEO? There's a certain level of profitability you have to have, a certain level of agents you have to have. Everything, and by the way, actually I think you can see this briefly. Then, so when you talk about, you can see this here, then this one defines how you do it. You see that? So you can see this and goes, oh, that's great. I can see where I can go. And then, by the way, after Director of Expansion, you have President and Vice President, right? President of Global, a whole bunch of different things to go over. We built these out before we are today. So you can see agent, how do you go to move to CEO? Everything's a number, 5 transactions. You want to go to 7th level, 12 net agents a year, 25% year-over-year production increase. You have to be netting $500,000 and 75% of HRG stuff, quotation calls, right? All these things are defined. So if you say, okay, oh great, you want to be a 7th level CEO, you want to go do something else, you want to go start in the region, awesome, where are you at? Red box is right there. It's a standard. The standards, we didn't come up with the same thing with Keller Williams. The standard, you want to go open a market center, they're not going to be like, hey, you know what, I got 2 cappers and 3 agents, but I'm really influential, I'm really excited, can you make an exception? They're going to say no, in a heartbeat. They're not even going to turn it in. RD's not going to sign it, right? It's standard. How are you putting these things in play? And look, I know that some of you guys may be thinking like, wow, this is like, it's too much. I'm just giving you guys ideas. Start taking a couple of these things and putting them into play. 5 questions, put that into play. Take your scoreboards, put that into play. I don't care if you're the only person looking at it, you need to see it every day. If you have a VA, the VA can do it. If you don't have nobody else on your team, you should be putting these together every day. That way when somebody comes in, you can have them start to take this and continue to rebuild the system up from there. But these are things that you've got to continue to put in here. And this is how you outline the opportunities for the next level, how they earn their right. And so you allow the standard to be the bad guy, not you. It's not an emotional decision. It comes down to performance. Most of us are still making emotional decisions instead of performance-based decisions. And it's so easy to go to sports because, by the way, you ever notice in sports nobody goes, oh, Tom Brady's working too hard, right? You never hear that. You never hear in sports that somebody's working, oh, you know what, you should take some time off, right? Well, maybe you get stressed by taking time off. Maybe you love being in control. Or the thing is about control, it doesn't mean just if you're a control freak. Most of us who own businesses are. We're control freaks. But you know what the thing that you need to control is the people you bring into your life. That's what you control. You control the people that you hire. And then from there, they should be able to outline your standards. So it's fine to want to be in control, but you have to utilize that for the good of understanding that the thing you control most about building a business is the people. But yet when we're faced in a situation where people aren't performing and we feel out of control, it's because of the people we have around us. And in sports, we see this. If a quarterback or a receiver is not holding up to their bargain, they, oh, yeah, man, of course, I can see why they dropped them. They lost 7, they haven't done anything with their passes. They lost this. They lost 3 games in a row. Everybody, ESPN, fans, get them out of there. Boom, right? It'd be a lot different if we operated that way. That's the control piece of the owner of the company, right, of, the Dallas Mavericks, the, Jerry Jones, right, of Dallas can literally control the coach that he puts into place. You have to control every detail about the organization. That's when the thing is you have to understand when you're building a business and you want control, you should control the people that you put in place, and they should be amazing people that are next to you. That's where that comes into play. That's where standards come into play. Make the stand on your hire. The people are going to be the most important asset. We talked about that X factor. The X factor of all the people that come in here, it's all about people executing these things. You can have the best systems in the world. You can have the best vision in the world. You can have the best opportunities in the world. But if you don't have the right people executing these things, you're not going to get anywhere. And that's the piece that you control. You control the people that are next to you. And that, by the way, is going to make or break your business. That's going to give you the freedom, or it's going to give you a lot of pain. And you have to make a stand on this. You have to continue to push yourself further and further from where you are. All right, let me just check to see. All right, your homework. By the way, I want you to, as you can see here, clearly review your current operations. Where can you improve? What's the next system or process you implement? Determine a number to hold each team member accountable to. Remember, bring everything back to a number. And you should start, by the way. You should start, okay, what's one number? And I want to hear it from you guys. You guys do an awesome job, by the way, of emailing me. And as most of you guys notice, I respond to everybody's email. It's not like I'm untouchable. People, I love actually hearing from you guys. So send it in, right? Send me what your number is. What's the standard you're going to put into your life? Let them be the bad guy. What are you going to do? By the way, go on vacation and see what standards or see what operations you have and realize how many holes you have in it and how that documents a good place to start. Because it's not you doing anything anymore, and you realize how much systems you need to put into place, and you assign somebody to that. Remember, one of the things that Gary always reminds me of is you personally don't need a system. The person you hire needs a system. So you need a person, and that person needs a system. Again, you're going to hear it from that angle from me. That's what I'm going to bring to you guys. And then on Thursday, Becca's going to bring in actual system operations, so don't forget that. But let me hear from you guys. You've been awesome. Thank you so much for allowing me to serve you guys. By the way, there's no call next week. So we have Thursday as a bonus call. Next week, I'm in Austin, so there's no call, and pick it back up with that. Have an amazing day. Talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.